I'm gonna turn the recording on. We were interrupted by a tech issue. So let's continue our conversation here. So yeah, there are moments of satisfaction, right? And they're associated with milestones, for sure. Generally, right? A kid getting his first car, right? Somebody getting their first kiss, somebody you have a crush on, you become intimate with them. These are all things that create basically the neurotransmitter and hormonal releases that are associated with security, joy, contentment, release. However, when I say joy, release, and contentment, to get to your question about what I mean by dissatisfaction, I I do not mean that joy means satisfaction. This is not joy means dissatisfaction in what I'm saying. Or I should say that contentment that is contingent on retirement or contingent on getting that first kiss or that has any contingency is not satisfaction. From as I'm defining it, it is dissatisfaction. That any sense of peace, which has a contingency in the material world, is doomed to cause pain. Marriage, children, anything. And the reason is everything changes. In fact, it's already changing. So, in other words, that satisfaction is derived from the illusion that the thing is a thing, but it's not a thing because it's already changed into an unrecognizable state. For example, if I'm laying around with my girlfriend, we're having a great time. Oh gosh, this is so great. This is so peaceful and joyful and content. But what I'm making a mistake in that moment from my point of view of crystallizing. I'm trying to freeze that moment where she thinks I'm great and I think she's great and there's no problems and hold it and have it as something that I can put in my pocket and keep. And it's on the basis of that ability to keep it that conditional satisfaction always arises, that the thing can be possessed. But from my point of view, because everything changes, nothing can be possessed. And of course, because of the third law of liberation, if there is no self, there's nobody to possess it. So this is just my point of view. So dissatisfaction includes pleasure, for sure, as I mean it.
Okay. I think where I differ in my perception of this is that I think that for me, when I think about this stuff and I think of like let's talk about like self, for example, right? You mentioned that, the self is separate, autonomous, and controlling, right? And I agree with you. And I think the self is a construct of the ego that's a construct of the physical world. It's a construct of the physical world that comes as a product of the physical world interacting with like the human spirit, right? Because I think like the spirit or like the soul, if you will, or source or whatever you want to call it. It's called different things in different um, uh, religions and different ways of thinking about things. Um, the self is not a the self is essentially an intangible thing that we attempt to make tangible, right? Um, in the physical material world. But I think there is an identity, right? I think there is an identity in the spirit, right? But then that spirit is also like collective, in my opinion, right? Because I think like all human spirits are like intertwined. I think everybody is in one way or another like connected, right? Even by just virtue of like both experiencing the human experience. You know what I mean? Um, so so I would agree. I think there is no self, right? I think the concept of self is something that we create to help us kind of like maneuver in this world of like very physical things, where it's hard to have this sort of understanding of like these abstract things that most people don't necessarily think about because it opens up the door to so many things that make them like maybe uncomfortable to think about, like maybe the fact that they're going to die one day, right? Like that scares a lot of people. So I think the fact that people think like, oh, I'm going to die one day, like that makes people scared, right? And because of that, like when people get scared, what happens is that like they have to create. Sorry, give me 1 second.
Yeah.
Rambo, be quiet. It creates this thing of like, oh well, I have to create some sort of identity for myself. I have to create a name for myself, right? Because if I don't have something that separates me from everybody else, then my life is essentially meaningless, right? So I think people find purpose and meaning in the wrong things, right?
Oh
Like
yeah.
I like people find purpose and meaning. Let me rephrase that. People try to make the most important like aspect of their life the physical, meaning like I have to be like I'll use the military for example, right? Like I have to be like in the military, and guys get in the military and they're like, well, there's other dudes that are like, I have to be special forces, right? And they'll be like, well, I have to be special forces, but I have to be the best one in special forces, right? So they're always going towards perfection, which is unattainable, right? Like perfection is not possible as a human being because we inherently are human being, and part of being human being is that we're inherently imperfect, right? So in those moments of people trying to like I guess assign value to their lives, they seek to assign value through the virtue of physical like things in the physical world, when what they should be doing, what would be more spiritually enriching and a true benefit to themselves and to the people around them, would be to try and connect with others in a way that's meaningful, right? Because the creations and the things that we've come up with in society, right, are a product of competition, right? And what I mean by that is like look at electricity, for example, and look at like the telephone. Like most major creations either came like out of necessity or out of people competing with each other to make better things. That's why there's different car companies, different home builders, different companies that sell like Walmart and Target. Essentially the same thing. They're competitors, right? And the thing is, they're competing for physical things, for money, for tangible items, right? Because the CEO of that place wants to buy a yacht and a bigger house. And maybe he has a mistress, and now he's got to pay alimony because he cheated on his wife. And this guy over here at Walmart, he wants to buy a bigger yacht and show the guy from Target that his dick is bigger than his, right? Um, and so they're always competing in this sort of like physical world, right? But if we kind of like extrapolated the concept of like competition, right, and just took the aspect of competition that's like people working hard to achieve something, right, and then taking pushing to the side like trying to like fight against each other. But we made it now a spiritual thing, right? Where let's work really hard to try and better understand the human spirit. Let's work really hard to try and better understand how we're all interconnected. Let's try and work really hard to better understand how we as a human race and as a people, right, can get to like a more spiritually evolved place, right? And I think that is like the final form of like humanity, right? And I think that like this is something that I hear on like the Joe Rogan podcast, which like is also one way of thinking of it too, is like some people have talked about this kind of the same topic as like maybe human beings are like the human caterpillar that's giving birth to like the electronic butterfly, right? Like maybe
Oh
the
yeah.
human
That
beings,
certainly is true. Yeah. With machines, yeah.
like you
I,
know what I'm saying? Like maybe human beings are the catalyst to the next step of
I think
humanity,
I
which
think
maybe
human.
isn't as human as we understand it. You know, it's a
Well,
different,
yeah.
it's a life form, but it's different, right? So I guess to come full circle,
Yeah. Yeah.
what I'm saying with this is like if people spent more time less focused on their egos and less focused on achieving things in this material world that's temporary, right? Which you can't blame them because we're all here. We all got to, make money. We all got to put food on the table. So you kind of have to be part of this world to some degree, right? You kind of have to feed the ego in some degree, right? To be part of this world and the way that we understand it, and not be like just a complete hermit, like living away from society, right? But if people spent more time nurturing the soul and nurturing the connections between human beings, I think that we would see like creation of new things but on a spiritual level. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Oh yeah, no, no, it
Like,
totally does.
so
You
that's
know,
what
if
I'm. That's
we,
kind of what I'm saying.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's refreshing to hear you say all this because I feel similarly about the repercussions of, shall we say, like enlightenment, which would be becoming aware of the importance of interconnectedness and love and self-awareness and things. Um, it's fascinating to hear you kind of riff on what the sociological repercussions of that would be and what the repercussions of neglecting that have been, which is, I would say, in the harshest possible way, is a system of intra-species exploitation, abuse, um, and dehumanization that has systematically spawned spawned a new kingdom of life known as machines, which have been parasitically using and manipulating us in order to reproduce, adapt, and evolve, which is actually what parasites do in nature. There's no difference. And you might say, what loss have we sustained? We've sustained a loss to the spirit. Sure, there's more of us and we have more shit, but the spiritual quality of life now, I'm quite confident, is worse than it's ever been in the history of humanity, including the Dark Ages or anything. We live in a pitifully spiritually atrophied time. And a lot of the things that you'll encounter in the inner world of minds as a cop will be a direct representation of that spiritual atrophy or disease. And it's actually that exact disease, nothing other, that Jesism seeks to cure. That's exactly what I'm seeking to cure. And it is exactly the case that I'm attempting to redirect people's attention away from their obsession with the material world, and that includes, by the way, people from my point of view, right? That my girlfriend is a material, I mean, she's obviously a human with a soul and everything, but in my mind, she's oftentimes encoded as a material thing, meaning she's the person who may do the dishes, or she's the person who I may have to pick up later, or whatever it may be. Is that in large part she's interpreted through a materialistic lens, and she has to be, because just like Madonna said, we're living in a material world. That by virtue of going to work, paying for a family, paying for whatever it is you and I pay for, we're beholden to engage in the world and interact with it and interpret it. We must, if we're going to exist in that capitalist type society, we must interact with it as if it has a large material component. Even, I think, people to some extent, you would hope to rise above that. And again, I think love, if I, not to sound sappy, but I think love has a lot to do with that rising above. But we'll always have a gravitational pull because we got to eat. And that gravitational pull isn't necessary because the very technology that is slave driving us into making material all the time actually has the power to free us from that need to produce all the time. But I want to say this is that Jessism is not as those are my personal beliefs. And yes, they're inspired by the insights, the five laws of liberation of Jessism. However, these are not component parts of Jessism. I don't teach these beliefs or these things. Jessism is not a large scale sociological revolution or something like that. And it's not a sociological revolution. It's a revolution of the individual human mind. That nothing can happen spiritually on any kind of scale that isn't born sitting in a room discussing with a friend and considering a revision of our view of reality, and likewise considering it in silence in the forms of meditation I teach, um, is even more important. And that from that original seed could thrive the garden of a new way of life that's spiritually based. However, I'm not concerned as in the teachings I offer with establishing that garden. I'm concerned with the seed. And I do believe that the most effective way to establish a new world is literally just looking in the eyes of one other person and seeing what's there.
Yeah, that's true. Now, you're right. Now, when you said that, that made me think like I've definitely met some people that you look in their eyes and there's nothing there. Like, if I'm being quite honest, like I've met a lot of people in my professional and personal career and life, where you meet them and you're like, dude, there is nothing there. Like, I don't know if like they sold their soul to the devil or someone in their family did before them, or what happened, or maybe that is just a soul, but that's very, very new soul that hasn't had a lot of experience or many, rotations around the sun, if you will. But sometimes you meet people and you're like, what is in there? Like, you want to knock, you're knocking on the door, like the lights are home, but no one's like the lights are on, but no one's home. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, I do. Well, a good way to see the brightness, as you say in your words, of someone's soul, is to really look at how they behave morally. Is very telling, you know? Like, if somebody harms somebody else for no reason, that's like, that says a lot about how aware that person is of things beyond themselves. And remember, Jesism, the self is an illusion. So I do believe and teach that the more tethered one is to the self, obsessing over separation, autonomy, and control, which are the driving forces, by the way, behind exploitative societies. Um, the more tethered and obsessed one is with those things, the less able one will be um, to know the world, really. Justice is really about knowing the world. It's not really about anything else. That I want to know what this microphone is, as it is. I want to know you. It's much more dynamic thing of you that you are. However, I want to know all things as they are. I do not want, remember in the beginning when I talked about dissatisfaction, I talked about an elaborate conversation that weaves a dream tapestry between the exciting good elements and the negative bad elements. It's constantly flowing and creating a compelling bullshit story, which is utterly dissatisfying. And so my purpose in life is to know what is there. If the tapestry is not there, what is there? And I'll give you a hint right now. It's not the five laws of liberation. The first law, which is that life is unsatisfying, is not true. The second law, which is life is change, is not true. The third law, which is life is no self, is not true. The fourth law, which is life is empty, is not true. And the fifth law, life is perfect, is not true. These five laws are designed to take people from the illusory tapestry of dancing like a fool on poisonous lily pads between satisfaction or between pleasure and lack of pleasure, between joy and lack of joy, between a great deceptive tapestry that leads people around life like slaves to five core points that are almost true. And then from there, you'll have to see the rest for yourself because it's more awesome, explosive, and utterly satisfying than anything I could ever tell anyone.
See, but right there, you just said utterly satisfying.
I know, it's not an accident, right? But that
So,
satisfaction is not of this world. There is no person to experience that satisfaction.
yeah,
It's
but
something
but like life though, like I mean, that's life. You know
not
what I
life. No,
mean?
it's not life because life depends on not life. For there to be life, there must be not life, right? So this is the satisfaction that arrives when duality is annihilated through the apprehension of the five laws of liberation. So that upon the annihilation of the tapestry of dreams and the scaffolding we use to dismantle it, there emerges something beyond, maybe I should say this, beyond satisfaction, something perfect, something complete at all times, without restlessness.
I mean, I think what you're attempting to describe is God, right? Like it is
That's what some people
what
call it.
people
Yeah,
have, yeah,
Justice. That is.
God, source,
mhm.
like is a sense like the Holy Spirit, like that is kind of what it sounds like to me. And like I'm saying that from a point of like having no horse in the game, but
Right.
a place of beyond restlessness and beyond satisfaction. Like you know, that's
Well, you know what Shakespeare
that's
said?
God. Or what I
Shakespeare
don't know
has a
what he said.
line. I really like Shakespeare. And I know what you're saying about God. I want to speak to that. Shakespeare is like, I love Shakespeare, and yeah, it's like really hoity-toity, like esoteric sort of stuff, and nobody understand. I don't even understand what the hell it's saying. But there is one line that I understand. He said, a little adjustment there. He said, "A rose by any other name would smell as sweet." So whether you call it God or you call it dog shit or you call it a corpse rotting on in a grave or whether you call it a woman's breast, whatever you call it, that thing which cannot be named is perfect, but upon being named, it starts to become integrated into that tapestry of dissatisfaction. So that unnaming process is closely related to the form of meditation I teach, which I emphasize that nothing I say will make sense, really, I believe, without meditation. So it's sort of, I know that we're having a synergy and we're touching each other with this communication. And that means, by the way, Pierre, so much, for real, means a lot to me. But in order for these concepts to break down into the things around us, into the dog shit, to God, to the woman's breast, and all things, it's my point of view that because people are extremely preoccupied in a dream, that it's the the weapon of lucidity that will awaken us isn't just it's the world, it's reality. And how do we awaken to reality? The way to awaken to reality is to practice this particular form of meditation I teach. You can practice other ones, but I think this is a great one for the modern person. And it's called perfection meditation. And this is very, very important. I tell everybody who comes to my groups and everything, do this, do this, do this. We're going to have a group in 21 minutes for 2 hours at my house where we will be doing this, you know? And so it can't be done intellectually alone. That what everybody needs is exactly what we're doing right now, but they also need to stop. That's my point of view.
Yeah, yeah. It's like I guess the best way I could think of it that popped into my mind as you said it is like the what you're describing is like a butterfly in a field, and people instead of enjoying that moment and the butterfly and just observing it fly by in the majesty of the moment, they're there with nets trying to catch it. And when you catch the butterfly, that experience is no longer the same. It's different.
I
The butterfly's still there, but it's completely different.
It sure is, yeah. And don't forget that you can't really catch something and appreciate it at the same time. That's why when I was single and I was dating, I was successful because I would appreciate the women I was talking to and not try to catch them. And they know that immediately. So it's very difficult to appreciate and catch something at the same time. I have a friend who's a very successful entrepreneur. He made tens of millions of dollars all on his own, and he has this business. And he's so busy catching the money and catching everything. He has absolutely no relationship to his job outside of that it is a way to make money. Everything he orders, all his employees that he commands, every sale he makes, It has no real appreciation of what is happening in terms of the emotional exchanges and things like that. It is literally just a conveyor belt of money. He's very wealthy, and that's good. I'm close to him, but I'm not that way. I'm much more interested in appreciating what I'm doing. That's why I don't edit my videos much. I mean, I think I've edited 2 videos and not much. It's because I don't appreciate editing. And I probably may have a lot more views if I did, but I won't do it or I won't do it now because I want to have an intimacy. I'd much rather be talking to you than editing a video, right? And I think in the long run, by the way, I mean, these are not really the point, but in the long run, the audience will want to talk to you more than they want to see an edited video either, anyway. So you don't have to worry about me snipping out the most incriminating parts of this conversation.
Yeah.
But we ought
Yeah, no,
to, oh, go ahead.
yeah, no, I think this is, I think it's good. It's good. Like these conversations are good because they help. I think they help people come out of the physical world for a moment, and think that there is like bigger stuff out there that's more important than your day to day life. Helps put things into perspective for people.
Well, if you were ever wondering whether or not that's true, just look at anybody's life. You need look no further. Look at your own life. I mean, maybe not you personally, but for those of you listening, look at your own life. You don't need to look very far to see that it doesn't work. It's a failure. This way of life is basically a religion, which is to accumulate everything. Accumulate pussy, accumulate money, accumulate everything you can get your hands on, cars, everything, right? And also, let's not forget, accumulate fame, accumulate that I'm the greatest, the tallest, the smartest, whatever it may be. This mentality of catching butterflies. How well does it work? Just look anywhere.
Yeah.
Look at Puff Daddy. Obviously, caught a lot of butterflies. He made a lot of money, incredibly famous, had a lot of influence in the music world. But there's something wrong with the guy. Like he obviously did not have a very balanced internal world. And you don't have to look far. Some of my friends idolize movie stars and famous people and stuff. I don't idolize any person alive because we're living in a world that's dissatisfied. Why would I envy anybody? Uh, if anything, I'm glad that I've had the circumstances and the luck to stumble across the fact that the way that's operating around me, as well as through me, is a complete and utter failure for delivering happiness and spiritual satisfaction. And Jesism is sort of trying to stand up and say, the time is now to turn that tide. And here's the simple methods that have the power to do that, from my point of view.
Yeah.
Well, we ought to wrap it up a little because I have those people coming over, and we have a mess here at the house from last night. We had art night last night, so you'll have to make it down here for some of our events sometime with your wife.
Yeah, I'll try once everything slows down a little bit. I'll try to make it out there.
Yeah, I mean, no pressure. I had a buddy say to me, he's like, yesterday, he's like, man, I feel really bad about not coming. I was like, dude, I mean, if I was, if my happiness was contingent on that part of the tapestry, I'd be a miserable man. And I'm
Yeah.
not that miserable.
Don't catch the butterfly.
What's that?
Don't catch the butterfly.
Yeah, don't catch the butterfly. Yeah, you're just a butterfly. I'm just admiring you. It'd be nice if you came closer. If you don't, there's beautiful grass over there. So, but and I also would really like to talk to you again. What if I felt like this was a really fruitful conversation for me to learn from you, as well as for the world to kind of hear these sorts of thoughts spin around. You really offer a lot of clear. You have a very clear mind, and you build things in a very nice, organized fashion. I find it very refreshing to talk to you. We don't stray a lot too much, and we kind of stay on topic. And again, you have a lot to contribute from your own background, which we would like to hear more about sometime.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'd love to.
I'm not sure how I'm going to handle like organizing it. We may do something with just you and I, or I may be more careful about how I group people. The whole Zoom thing is just sort of a work in progress, but maybe next time we'll either do you and I, or I'm thinking actually just one or maybe two other people tops. That none of them, we're not doing
Yeah.
any 8-person groups. But I
Yeah.
think it's going to be really rewarding. So would you like me to let you know about when the next meeting is? You make it if you can.
Yeah. Let me know if I can make it. I'll try to make it.
It should be next week. I'm trying to keep it regular so people can get tuned in. But
Okay.
but yeah. Well, Pierre, great seeing you, man. And have fun
Likewise.
tonight. Say hi to your family for me, okay?
Will do. You too. Have a good one.
Peace.
See ya.
So there you have it, everybody. Changing the world one connection at a time. But the time has come for that connection to be with you. So if you'd like to have an in-depth discussion about Jesism and how it can serve your life, yeah, I guess we got to cut off. We got a tech thing. I was just building up the drama. If you'd like to have a discussion about Jesism, me, and how it can serve your life with the particulars of love, work, and warfare within the world, I am here for you. The way to proceed with that is to email me, Jesism.Asis, as is, at gmail.com. Furthermore, be very scrupulous in looking through my YouTube channel. YouTube just likes to show what's new. And that's great because YouTube's great. And I love YouTube. It's amazing. It's such an incredibly effective platform to reach you. And I wouldn't have it any other way. However, a lot of my videos, even from the last 2 or 3 months, offer to reach you on many topics which there's no point in just rinse and repeating. Go back in the archives of Jesism a little bit, just a few months, and you're going to find some real gems there. Chances are, if you go back a while, you'll find a video you liked even more than this one. That's what I'm here for, to give you what you like, what you really like. I hope you have a wonderful night. Thank you very much.